Hey there, it's Jane. Thanks so much for stopping by. I wanted to give you a quick tutorial on how to swatch and organize your ink pads. Your mini ink pads, your full-size ink pads, and your distress ink pads. So let's get into it. So this is how I keep my ink swatches in these coin pocket holders. And I got the idea from Jennifer McGuire because she is a genius. I use this Simon Says Stamp Swatch stamp set, which I'll show you in just a second. And I went through and I redid all of my inks. And if it's a mini, I put mini on the top. If I have a full and mini, I write it on there as well. I need to do a little bit better with my inventory on my ink swatches. So as I said, I keep them in coin pockets. I put them in relative color order. I'm not real anal about making them light to dark. I keep the blues with the blues and the greens with the greens. This is how I keep my minis. This goes right into my IKEA Alex unit, and it's by Organize More, and you can see I just swatched all of those little minis. And then I wanted to show you these full-size ink pads that I'm just so in love with the fact that I have these little swatches on the right-hand side, and all of my full-size ink pads now look like that. I'm just happy. This is how I did my Distress Oxide real quick. I took the actual ink pad and rubbed it on some watercolor paper, let it dry, and then I took a water marker or paintbrush and painted half of it, let it dry, and then I cut it out with a 1¼ inch square punch. That way I could see what it looked like oxidized and right out of the ink pad, and I use that all the time. So I have created these downloads for you for free. They are on my blog, and it says to cut a ½ inch off the right side and 1 inch off the bottom. So make sure they're fed into your printer properly, and make sure you print at 100%. And then you're going to cut 1 inch off the bottom or a little bit more. The download says to cut an inch off. Sorry about that camera angle. But I like to scooch it over just a little bit so it's a little bit closer to the text at the bottom. And then you're going to take the left edge and line it up at 6 inches. And you're going to start at the bottom. And you're going to stop at the top, somewhere around the words. And then you're going to move it to 4 inches, start at the bottom and move up. The reason you start at the bottom and move up is that way you're pushing up against the guide at the top. This is at 2 inches. And then you have this weird looking thing that looks like this. Now you're going to put it all in and line it up at 2 inches, start at the bottom and cut up, line them up on the left. And you're going to have these really nice 2-inch squares without having to fiddle with a whole bunch of strips of paper. And again, I go bottom to top. That way the paper is pushing up against that stop at the top so it doesn't get all messed up. When you're all done, you've got 16 of amazing swatches ready for you to, or it's 20, I'm sorry, ready for you to swatch. So I have all of these Lawn Fawn inks that I wanted to show you exactly what I do with them. So I've already printed and cut out all of my Lawn Fawn swatches. A long time ago, I did all of my inks with labels that I printed on the computer, and that was great when you're doing 50, but when you get 2 or 3 more pads, it makes it difficult. So I print these labels on my P-Touch label maker, and then I never put any colors on them because I never knew what to do. So this is my solution. So I've gone through the Lawn Fawn swatches and matched up with the inks. So this is exactly what I do. I put the color on top, the swatch on top of the big one and the underneath the minis, and I get them all laid out, getting ready to make my swatches. And I am a fan of assembly line. But now that I have a plan and I know what to do when I get 1 or 2 inks in, I can definitely do it. And I do have an Evernote tutorial that I will link to that below, which is a great way for you to keep track of your supplies. So I use this Simon Says Stamp Swatches stamp set, and this is my favorite one. And I put it on a clear block, and I have this solid heart that I have no idea where it came from. Any solid stamp will do. This is the mouse pad from inside my Mini Misty. I like it because it's small. I have my Lawn Fawn stamp chamois with this salt cellar, and I will link to everything in my blog post. This is a 1/2 inch circle punch, and that's my microfiber cloth. And then I use that Ultra Clean when I clean reds, because reds always leave a stain. So I'm getting all lined up here. I always like to start with the lighter color and work my way to the darker. And I test off my stamp here to make sure that there's no residual ink left on it from the last time I stamped something. So I'm zooming in a little bit here. So my camera sits on my table, so I apologize for the bounce in advance. I like to get a good solid stamp on my stamps. So I'm stamping both stamps, the one that goes on the swatches, give it a little press. And then I'm also stamped the heart. And I have this scrap piece of paper here that I saved from when I cut my swatches down. And I used up all that scrap paper. And I'm going to take that and I'm going to stamp it in the left-hand corner. And so I take my swatch, put it underneath my mini ink pad. And now I'm cleaning my stamp pads with the Lawn Fawn chamois, and I'm drying them with that microfiber to make sure that they're really good and clean in between, because you don't want to contaminate. And I have contaminated quite a few. So now I'm looking for my next lightest color. I think this one's paper bag or something. No, it's pizza crust. And I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to stamp on the swatch. And again, I give it a nice solid stamp. Put it under so I don't forget. And then I'm going to stamp in the corner of that paper. And then I'm going to clean everything off and make sure that everything is all clean for the next stamp. So I continue doing this for every single one of my minis. Let me show you one more. This is Lawn Fawn Cilantro. I'm sorry it's out of focus. I mean screen. I thought it was all in screen. But I'm putting the ink on the Simon Says Stamp swatch and the heart. And I'm stamping the heart on the piece of paper on the right. And I will definitely show you that piece of paper in a second. There you go. So that's all of them. So I start from left to right so I don't lose track. And then I take my 1/2 inch punch, punch it in the middle, and put them on top of my colors. Now, it's easy to tell these because they're different colors, but if you're working with a bunch of reds or blues or purples, the best thing to do is kind of label about every other one so you don't get confused. Well, maybe you don't get confused, but I do, on which color you're actually swatching. You don't want to put the wrong one on the wrong ink pad. This is my favorite glue, my liquid glue, Lawn Fawn, and I'm putting a dot in the upper right of every single one. A good size glob, because you don't want this swatch to fall off. And every single one of them gets this little glob of glue. And then I set them all aside, and then I put all of the ink swatches in a bowl, and then in a little while I will go and sort them all out by color. And if you go onto my post, you will see a picture of them all being sorted out. It's kind of fun. This is how I do my large stamps pads. It's really the exact same. I stamp the Simon Says Stamp swatch. I stamp the red, and I use Ultra Clean at the end of every red because otherwise I'll get over stamping. And meaning that I'll get the color bleed from the red and put it on the end. And again, I start from left to right, and I line up the stamp pads from left to right, and that way my confusion is a little bit minimized. On all the minis, I go through and I write mini at the top because I keep my minis in my Alex drawer units. And the beauty about that is you can stack these too high. And I keep my full-size inks on a in a stamp and storage ink holder that's visible on next to my craft table. It's on the wall. So the next color I'm going to do is Carrot. And again, same process. Heart, and then carat. And that's what I'm going to do for all of my large inks. So now that I'm almost done, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take that 1/2 inch punch again. I'm going to punch circles. Now that I wanted to show you, I stamped that off and it's still red. So thankfully I did, look at that, because it would have contaminated the next color. So now I'm punching them and putting them on top and taking the swatch out of the way and doing it for each one. And then, as I showed you at the beginning of the video, I'm going to put these little swatches on the ends of all of my stamp pads. And I put a label on the short end and the long end, but I only put the swatch on the short end because that's the side that I see. So I do this for all of them. It's a really good size glob of glue. I lay them on their tops so they have an opportunity to dry. And then I will show you, I take a pair of sharp scissors and I just cut them off even. And I just love them. I mean, I do use my swatch sheets when I'm looking for colors, but sometimes I just want to go to the wall and get a purple one, and that's what I look for, purple. So I'm just cutting that end off right there. And then you stack them all up, and there you've got your incredible organized stamp pads. Some companies like Altenew have layering colors, so I printed out an extra set of the downloads, and I made sure that the labels all went in order for you, so it's from light to dark, because you order them in sets of 4 if you want to get the minis, and that way all of your layering colors are together. Thanks so much for stopping by. I really appreciate it. Check out all the links and everything on my website, and have a great one.